All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's the Mosin dude here, and as you can see, I have another Mosin rifle. This would actually be a carbine, if you will. This particular one, as you saw by the title and thumbnail, is a Mosin 9159. Now, they're pretty cool stories on these, I must say. For a Mosin, I guess, if you can be cool, this would be one of them. This may look like an M38 to you guys, but it's not, I can assure you. For one, there's a couple denotions on the rifle, on the receiver, that say 9159, but also there's a couple other minute differences that the M38 does not share with this rifle, which I'll get into a little bit later. A lot of people think that these are the KGB rifle, that these were secret rifles, if you will, secret Mosins that were never meant to be traced back to Russia, which is kind of hard to do because everyone knows that the Mosin originated in Russia with the original M91, which was created in 1891, but you know, being a Mosin design, I think it's pretty easy to trace back to Russia. So a lot of people would think that these would be those secret Mosin rifles because they would take the receiver and basically ground down all of the markings, all the Russian markings and stuff like that. And to my knowledge, they did that because they would take these rifles, 9130s, and they would chop them down to this configuration as you see here. I have one on the ground that I'll show here in a bit and compare the two. But they would chop these down as kind of like a stopgap rifle, and then they would give them to countries like Bulgaria and stuff like that during, you know, the height of the Cold War, 1959, as I said earlier, when they actually cut these rifles down. So they're very similar to Mosin M38s in the sense the length is about the same. The main differences with that is with the 9159, the barrel profile is going to be a lot thicker. It's that of a 9130, so it's going to be a lot thicker of a profile barrel. The rear sight has been ground. The 1,000 meter markings and up have been ground off, or excuse me, the 1,000 meters still here, but everything past 1,000 meters was ground off. So there's no detent there to really denote which one you're at. I mean, there's detents, but you know, I guess unless you memorize the sight radius, you wouldn't really know. And then, like I said, the 9159 on the receiver. And one other way that you can pick out these things is the handguards are typically mismatched. I don't really know why that is. My only perception, I guess, of that would be that they would take all these rifles, they would disassemble them, and then chop down each of the individual pieces, like the stock, the handguard, and the barrel themselves, and then put them in different areas. But what's cool is this one still is a parts matching rifle, which is pretty cool. You know, it just adds to the value, if you will. I actually have a video on how I purchased this rifle if you guys are interested. I bought it in an online auction, and I showed you how you can do that as well. If you're interested, I'll leave a link to that video in the description. But overall, this video is about this rifle right here. And we'll compare it to a 9130 so you guys can see the distinct differences between the original rifle that this one was, which was actually in 1942 was when this original 9130 was built, and then they chopped it down to this configuration. So that's pretty cool. Some of the markings have been kind of ground a little bit. They're definitely very faint stampings, but this is also a wartime production, so that could just be how the rifle left the assembly line. So just something to think about as well. But yeah, let's get to comparing it to a 9130. So as you can see here, we have three Mosin Nagant rifles, the top being the M91, the center being the M9130, and the bottom being the M9159. You can kind of see a comparison between the lengths of each rifle there. The 9159 actually saves a substantial amount of weight because of the reduced barrel weight and weight of the stock itself, which, you know, the fore end doesn't weigh that much, but, you know, every little bit helps when you're talking about these old war horses. So the Russians in World War II actually used the center rifle, the 9130 there, and they determined that this rifle just wouldn't be feasible in combat because most of the engagements with the Germans were happening within 300 meters, and even more so in the cities it was less than that. It was about 150 meters and less. So the Russians sought to design more firearms, such as the PPSH-41, which was a pretty effective gun in close-range combat, but it just proved to the Russians to be too expensive to produce, so they produced the PPS-43s, and that seemed to work out pretty well for them. But the Germans, with the advent of the STG-44, kind of determined that, you know, we need to get away from these full-size rifle calibers such as the 7.62x54 and go to those intermediate cartridges, which led the Russians to design the 7.62x39, which, you know, is a little out of the realm of these guns, but kind of gives you a little perspective on each of these. So you can see kind of some of the differences in the evolutions of each gun. So the 91 there up top has a little different sight than the 9130 and the 9159 there. Kind of kept those same sights. But those are just some of the small iterations. Barrel bands obviously changed a little bit as well. As you can see, instead of being a screwed down clasp, it was just held by a spring in place in the stock, and then same is retained on the 9159 there. So just to show you this receiver and what it looks like that I was talking about, it's a little worn with the markings there. You can kind of see they're kind of faint, but you can see the 9159 right there denoting that on the receiver. Compared to a non-wartime production gun, the stuff is struck in there a little better. So it kind of gives you an idea of the quality of these guns. You can also see that this is a hex receiver because it was 1934, I believe this rifle was. And you have a nice little hex receiver right there. And then the wartime, they kind of took that down and just tried to speed up the process as much as possible. I mean, that was also done on the 9130. In 1930, so to see a hex receiver after that's pretty cool, but not necessarily uncommon. So yeah, let's get back to the shooting portion of this video where we take both these, the 9130 and the 9159, and compare those as far as the shooting goes. All right, so we have the rather large 7.62 by 54 here. We're just going to put a couple rounds through each rifle so you can see how they perform and then compare them to each other and what I think. I've already shot a couple 9130s and then my M44, which I think the 9159 will be very similar to. But we'll get a couple rounds busted off here for you guys so you can see. So still a little bit of recoil from the longer rifle, but let's compare that to the 9159. So I'm not sure if the Russians or Bulgarians did anything, but this is one of the smoothest bolts I've ever felt on a Mosin rifle, and I'm not just saying that, it really is. Like, I was thoroughly impressed when I picked this rifle up, and yeah, I was just blown away by it. So let's put a couple rounds down range. This is my first couple rounds out of this rifle. And yeah, let's compare it to the 9130. I think it's going to be a lot louder and a little bit more of a kick. So, oh yeah, it's a little bit more recoil, I'll say that. It's about what you would expect from a carbine though. Wow, that is sweet. Yeah, it kicks a little bit more than the 9130, but it's tolerable. It's not bad. Let's put a couple more rounds through it for you guys. So yeah, I've actually used 7.62 by 54 for deer hunting before. It's actually a pretty comparable round to like a 308 and stuff like that. So if you guys use 308, it's very similar. But you get you some nice soft point ammunition. Like S&B makes a nice, I believe it's 182 grain soft point. That'd be something to consider. So. Got some dudes picking up brass, you know, the big ammo crunch. They're out here picking up everything they can find, so I respect that. If I could reload, I would. But let's get back to shooting this old warhorse here. As you can see, some of them, I think these steel case get a little sticky, but the bolt itself is still very smooth. Oh yeah, guys, this thing is spot on the money. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video of the 9159. Let me know what you guys think of this rifle compared to some of the rifles that you've shot, the Mosin variants that is, and let me know what you think of the rifle in general. I think it's a very sweet little carbine. It's a lot lighter than a 9130. I was also surprised by that fact. It probably weighs, I don't know, a good 2-3 pounds lighter than a regular 9130, which they only cut off a couple inches of barrel and then shortened the stock, and then obviously a couple of small other things that we talked about. But I was very surprised by this rifle and how it performed today. So guys, as always, thanks for watching my videos and all your support. Be sure to leave some comments and questions that you have. I enjoy talking to you guys and learning from each other down in the comment section below. As always, guys, remember where you came from and to stay humble. Or is it, yeah, it's stay humble, remember where you came from. This is Mosin, dude. We'll see you on the next video.